Hello, I'm Bob Whitley. Recently, I did a special report for Endless Adventure. The subject was manifesting your own destiny. I spoke with a Virginia lawyer named Trey, and he claimed that anybody, you, me, anybody, can manifest anything they want. That's what he claimed. This Virginia lawyer claims that humans can create their own destiny. His name is Trey Adcock, and when we spoke to him last, Mr. Adcock claimed that he could produce $200,000 into his bank account simply by knowing how to manifest. And he also claimed that any listener who followed the steps could do the same thing, manifest whatever they desired. He encouraged any listener who bought into it to go along. So we decided to check in with Trey Adcock, to see how it's going. Hello, Trey, how you doing?
Well, hi, Bob. It's really nice of you to come back and check on us. As you know, the last time we talked, we were trying to manifest $200,000. I was personally intending on manifesting that into my bank account as my desire, and was also going to allow the audience to join in, because the more the merrier. When you have two or more in the same concept, it just gives it that much more weight and credibility. So if it's a small price to pay, if I want $200,000, but 7 or 8 more people manage to get it as well, then that's just a price you have to pay. Because the universe doesn't work like you think. It's not really rewarding individual effort as much as it rewards group effort. It rewards manifesting that is intended for more than yourself. However, it does not require this. The main requirement is the faith that you can have it, and that we were discussing the legal basis. Being a lawyer, I like to see the legal basis of something, and the legal basis of this is clear. Jesus Christ told his followers, if you can imagine that mountain to move and you believe it will, it will. Whatever you can imagine and believe you've received it, it is yours. That is the essence of Christianity. It's also the essence of some Eastern religions, and it doesn't work quite like pulling a rabbit out of the hat, but the idea is it does work. Well, that's good to hear. So how's it going? Have you got the $200,000 yet? Well, no, I haven't checked my bank account today, but it has not popped in there just yet. That doesn't mean that anything has changed. That's perfectly normal. The whole point is you simply go about your life as if you already had it. But I have done some things, like I was looking at some property I was intending on purchasing, and I went to some details on the property. Those kind of things in the subconscious mind verify your intent. And it sort of tricks or convinces the subconscious mind that you really did intend this. And it's all a matter of getting the intention to be believed by the 3 aspects of the human. That's the body, the mind, and the spirit. And you've basically got a heart, which is your feelings, the way you feel the emotions, and then you've got the rational mind. And the key is to get them both in concert to an idea. And when that unison is solid, the result occurs. And we discussed how you can create negative things inadvertently by just thinking of negative things. Sometimes you end up wearing down your feelings and it shows up. So you're saying, essentially, Trey, that people create their own destiny. And the day they're living today, well, it was created somewhere along the way. Well, to a certain degree, that is true. And if you had that being the dynamics of the universe, it could get pretty complicated with 8 billion people inadvertently or purposely creating things in their minds that they desire, and they show up. And so your intentions are very important. It comes down to learning how to control all the aspects of your body, including your magnetic field and your electric body have to be in concert with the flesh body. It's a lot of things to consider, but when those are in concert, you can manifest things you desire because you already have.
Hi, do you want to make your own podcast for free? Try Anchor. It's the easy way. Anchor gives you creation tools needed. You can use your own phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to the right platforms, Apple, Spotify, and all the big ones. You can make money on your podcast no matter the size of your audience. So download the free Anchor app and get started.
And so I thought about what Trey was saying, and I went on the internet just to see what was there. On YouTube, there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of videos that tell you how to manifest. And most of those spoke about a little thing called law of attraction. It's a complete category. There must be thousands of law of attraction videos you can watch. And none of them really conflict with what Trey is saying. But once you get into this, you'll discover that it seems too good to be true, but it's also, there are some steps you have to take properly. Now, Trey, would you recommend anybody in particular that the audience should some of these YouTube videos, would they be helpful? Well, certainly, my biggest resource would be Brian Scott, who does numerous videos, and he's read many books on his podcast, and he is certainly one of the more prolific proponents of not only law of attraction but manifesting your own destiny. And he goes into to great details. He must have at least 200 videos out. I strongly recommend you check at least something out. And if you do happen to check anything out by Brian Scott, I would recommend his video, Unification of Heart and Mind. It's a very short video, and it gives you a really good picture of what we're really talking about here. Unification of heart and mind? How do you do that? Well, it's not as easy as it sounds, and it's also not nearly as impossible as it might sound. First of all, you have to understand that there are two differences. There is a heart and there is a mind, and they work independently. They're designed to work independently. The heart does not consider logistics in its dreams, and the mind does not consider dreams in its logistics. But when they can converse and unify and agree on something, and that's when the magic begins. Hi, Bob Whitley back. We were talking to Trey Adcock, who claims he can manifest $200,000 or more, or whatever he wants. Cars, houses, better jobs, love interest, whatever you desire, Trey says you can have it. Yeah, the book of Revelations, or rather the book of Genesis, states that the condition of man is such that he lives and eats upon grapes he did not plant, fields he did not sow. In other words, the condition of man at one point, the world was already made. And then Paul in Romans said the same thing, there's nothing new under the sun, which backs up the contention that Brian Scott points out in his Reality Revolution series. He points out that the world is already made, everything has been made, and nothing is created. So therefore, when you manifest, you're not so much creating as choosing. Choosing? Like you're choosing to take $200,000 that's just waiting for you? Well, it's kind of like that. What Brian Scott's concept, and it's backed up by many of the thinkers. It's a very, very widespread belief that the universe has different realms, or in other words, they call it Transsurfing. You can live in one sector, one timeline, but you can climb up to others which are working parallel, and you can go to the highest timeline possible if you know how. And you do it with little small baby steps. For example, just little things. Let's say you're walking down and there's a grassy field, and let's say a butterfly lands on a dandelion, and you decide to try to pick up the butterfly, and let's say that you do, well, then that creates a different set of circumstances than where you had just walked past and was worried about a particular problem. Stop and smell the roses kind of thing. And serendipity can lead you to higher versions of your current reality. In other words, all realities are already created. You're simply choosing this version of it, and you can choose to go up. You can also slide down. And so when I intend to manifest a $200,000, technically, by the process, I am not really creating $200,000. That would seem to be difficult. I am simply moving into the timeline where I have $200,000 more than I do now. Now, different sort of life circumstances begin to appear, and that's kind of at the heart of it. That particular version is Transsurfing model of law of attraction, where you attract a higher timeline. So can you bounce around from timelines? How does that work? Well, now you're getting into metaphysical thought, but of course you'll have to accept the theory. It sort of goes along the lines of string theory to a certain degree, not totally, but there's similarities. But it does make sense, and it is backed up with some biblical backing, particularly the Genesis statement that you eat of grapes you did not plant. Basically, your world is created already. You're choosing to live in the one that you desire. Well, that sounds awfully hard to understand, Trey. Because most of us just get up and we live and do what we have to do. How can we transurf, say, in the middle of a bad day? Can you transurf and get that day at a higher timeline where the day turns out better? There is absolutely no telling how many timelines you might traverse in a day. You do have choices, and a lot of times the ranges are very small that you can access immediately, and that's kind of how it works. A little bit like Gabriel's ladder. Once you get on a higher timeline and you start responding to those timelines, well, your behaviors lead to even higher timelines, and that's how you would manage the Transsurfing universe. Now, Trey, you mentioned some people the last time we talked. You mentioned Neville Goddard. And I did some research on Neville Goddard. He was a speaker. He was a motivational speaker. He died in 1977 or something like that, but he was primarily a radio speaker. He was an actor. And this man wrote some books about all these things we're talking about, and seems to be the mind behind all of the models we see on the YouTube. He is quite well respected. Tell us a little bit about Neville Goddard. Well, Neville Goddard was, like you said, a motivational speaker. He did quote from the Bible quite a bit. He didn't consider himself a pastor, but he did certainly take a spiritual approach to what he was trying to get his audience to understand how this works. It's a kind of a marriage of spiritual and three-dimensional flesh, and you have to increase your awareness. But Neville's main point was that you had to feel what you want, and he went through a lot of details as to how you would do that. For example, if you were imagining a new car, he would strongly recommend that you go out to a car lot and test drive it, sit in it, get all the details in your brain, in your mind, down, and start to feel like that's your car. And then it's about consistency. And so if you wanted to manifest this car, he would invite you to, right before bedtime, which is the magical time when the two dominions merge, the physical and the spiritual kind of merge or pass the baton. There's a moment right before sleep that your subconscious begins to rule. And that's when you would plant your image of this car and the idea that it was yours. And so it's easier for the subconscious, which is the great activator. It's the action comes when the subconscious mind, which is the heart, starts to believe that it's theirs, that they get what they want. And then it's just a matter of convincing the mind, which you've already helped by giving the heart a description of what you want, and the mind, knowing that you've sat in that car, knowing all the details, it's much easier for it to believe that you have it. And that leads to circumstances that you would get that car. So what happens when it doesn't work? So many people have tried it. All these millions of YouTubers that watch these videos, some have had success, but some haven't. What's the difference? What makes it work? Well, belief is what makes it work, and it's very hard for a human mind to actually believe something that it didn't believe before. It's much easier. It's easier to learn new knowledge than it is to unlearn something, and we're taught quite the opposite concerning our limitations and the such. And so it's very difficult to reprogram the brain, the mind, but it's certainly possible. And like you said, Neville Goddard teaches you how to do that. It comes through repetition and acting as if you already have it. And every time you do an action that verifies your desire is already yours, that increases the likelihood of it showing up. Now, Trey, since you publicly said you were desiring $200,000, it's been a few days since we spoke, almost been a week. How have you handled this in your mind? Have you thought about it much, or are you just assuming it will show up? Do you have doubts? Well, no, I don't have any doubts at all, because that's how it works. You simply have to believe. Like I said, it helps to give the mind as many details as possible. And that helps the unification of the heart's desire and the mind to be in unison. To simply project something that you might want and it seems simply out of reach, the mind cannot conceive of it. It's not going to happen. Even though the heart may be screaming for it, your feelings you want it, you've got to get the mind, the rational mind, to make this seem normal. So resistance is the first thing that happens. You, in your heart, desire something that's really, at the moment, seems unattainable. For example, if someone wanted that car and they knew that their financial situation would make that a difficult thing to do, they need to do a lot of work and to get this process going correctly. And Neville Goddard would tell you a lot of ins and outs, and it almost becomes like a change of lifestyle, and more so than just picking a rabbit out of the hat. But as far as, my 200,000, like I said, it helps to get the mind to see that as a perfectly normal thing, that Trey is going to pick up $200,000. And so I act as if that maybe say, how would you feel if you sold some stock or something and was trying to cash out an asset, but you knew it might take a little time to actually get that promissory note or what have you, but you still make the plans. Like if you went to your 401 and took out 200,000, and you went through all the little processes, and the guy says, well, it'll be 7 to 10 days, you want that UPS, what have you, then you can go ahead and operate like you have that money. And that you have to have that assurance. And that's kind of the key. So is this mind over matter? Or is it heart over mind? Either way, Trey Adcock certainly believes that he has manifested $200,000. And he claims his listeners just might too. Hello, this is Bob Whitley. Would you like to have anything you desire? Well, stick around for this next episode, and my guest is going to tell you how you can do it. Don't miss it.